In this video, I'll show you how to create 3 different background effects to turn your plain backgrounds into something a bit more exciting. Hello, I'm Gavin Hoey and you're watching Adorama TV, brought to you by Adorama, the camera store that's got everything for us photographers. And in this video, I'll show you how to turn your plain background in your small home studio into something a bit more exciting by adding a second light with either a reflector, a Stripbox or a snoot attached. Once I've gone through the setups, we'll do an entire shoot using all 3 looks, but for now, let's get some lights set, let's get a model in, let's get shooting. So to help me out today, I've got the amazing Sophie. Sophie's going to be the model today, and she's being lit by an Xplor 400 with a fairly small 70cm softbox. But the key here is the grid. Now the grid is there to direct the light towards Sophie and away from the background, because what I need is this grey background to appear as dark as possible. The darker it looks in the photos, then the more effect I can add in with a second light. Now I've already metered this out for f2.8. Let's take a picture, see how it looks. Here we go. And as you can see, that background is, well, not completely black, but very nearly black. And that's exactly what I want at the beginning of this shoot. So the first effect I'm going to do is the classic spot of light behind Sophie. So bright in the center and then vignetting out to darker edges. Now to achieve it, I'm going to use a second light, which is the eVOLV 200. And to make sure that I get that circular spot of light, I'm going to use the bare bulb with a circular reflector. Stands to reason. If I was to use the speed light attachment, I would get a rectangular shape to the light, which isn't what I'm after here. So this light is on its lowest possible power, and it's going to go right in behind Sophie, pretty much almost touching her on the back, pointing directly onto the background. Let's take a shot and see how this looks. So this works really well. It gives a nice bright spot in the middle and it vignettes at the edges, but it is quite a wide spread of light. Now there's a couple of ways I could control the spread of light. I could add a grid onto this reflector, but there is a chance that that grid pattern can be projected onto the background. So instead, what I'm actually going to do is move the light closer to the background. Now the closer I get it to the background, the less spread I'm going to have and the tighter the beam of light will become, but the more control I need to have over its position. So I'm aiming to just to raise it up a little bit so it actually appears behind Sophie's head and make sure it's pointing straight at the background. And it might just take 1 or 2 shots to get this in exactly the right position. So let's take a shot, see how it looks. Here we go. So that's just a little bit off to the side, just a little tiny movement can make a massive difference. And if you want a really dramatic effect, take that light and put it really close to the background. Now the spread is going to be incredibly small. I'm going to have mostly a dark background with just a small spot of light. And because it's so close, it's also going to bring up some of the texture from this paper as well. For the second look, I want to do something different. I'm going to create a linear gradient. That means I want to create a look where it's brighter on the background at the bottom and then becoming darker towards the top. Now to achieve it, I'm going to use this. This is a Stripbox, which is a 12 by 56 inch Stripbox. It's almost the same width as my background paper, and that's really what I want because it's going to come right in behind Sophie back here. So let's get that in without actually hitting her, because it's kind of big. Now, the actual position of this is more important than you might imagine, and a small studio does make this the most challenging of the 3 looks. Now, if I get it so it's pointing straight ahead, parallel with the floor, I'm going to get a slightly different effect than if I angle it up. Let's have a look at this. So it's in the middle of its power range and it gives me that graduated look, but there's quite a bit of texture coming off of the paper. Even though this is a smooth paper, if you light it from a tight angle, you will see some texture. To reduce the textured effect, I'm actually going to tilt the softbox slightly back. Now that's going to mean that the light is more even as it goes across the background. So my graduated effect might be slightly reduced, but I'll get rid of some of the texture. So that's a balance you have to decide. Let's have a look. Here we go. Now these are actually exactly the same power as the first shot, and you can see how much brighter the background has become, but I'm only at 1/8 power, so I've still got plenty of control, and I can take the brightness of that background light down and have a much darker background effect. So for the final look, I'm going to create something much more dramatic. I want to create a thin strip of light across the background, and to do it, I've switched out my softboxes to a snoot. Now this should give me the look I'm going for. I need to get it up nice and high, or at least as high as I can in my small home studio, and that should project light across the background. Now it's worth remembering, snoots project a circle of light, but if you rake it across at a tight angle, that circle will become stretched out across the background and should form a bit more of a beam of light. Getting it in the right position is a bit of a challenge, a little bit of luck, a little bit of practice and patience. So let's see how this looks. So in this case, the beam doesn't quite work. It's only slightly adrift, but all I need to do is to turn the snoot just slightly more towards the background and try again. And this look really brings up the texture on the paper. Looks very, very dramatic. A snoot takes much more light out than you realize, so you may find yourself using a much higher power than you first think. So that's my 3 different background looks. What we're going to do now is to give Sophie a little bit of a change. So we'll give her a leather jacket, there we go, and we'll get her off the stool and we'll do a little bit of a shoot using all of these 3 different lighting setups. Okay, so let's get rid of that and off we go. So the first look I'm going to do is with the Stripbox, giving that graduated effect. So now I'm going to use the reflector and I'll move it closer and further from the background to create the different looks. And finally, let's go for the dramatic background effect with the snoot. Now you might notice the colours on these are a little bit different to the colour on my test pictures. So here's some quick thoughts on how I edit my pictures to get a consistent colour even when I'm changing lights. Now the first thing I'm going to do is decide on the basic look for a picture. So I think with these, a little bit cooler colour temperature will work well with Sophie's look. That looks a little bit magenta, so I'll add a bit of green in there just to counteract that. That looks better. And maybe just bring the vibrance down just to have a slightly more washed out feel. I think with these shots as well, I could probably lift the exposure a little bit as well, like that. Pull the clarity down, and just some general housekeeping things like a little bit of noise reduction. There you go. Now once I'm happy with that picture, I can either click done, open the picture, save it, or whatever I'm going to do. But then I'm going to go back to my pictures and find the next picture I want to edit in the same way. For example, let's choose this one. I'll open that into Camera Raw, and here in Camera Raw, to reapply exactly the same settings, I need to come up to this small set of lines, click on that and choose Previous Conversion. Now that will apply all the same sliders in exactly the same place, even the noise reduction. But anything that's local, for example, the adjustment brush, if I want to say lighten that area there, that will be done one picture at a time. And there you go, that's how I kept the consistent colour across my edited pictures. The key to success with this technique is to keep that background as dark as possible until you add in your second light. And then, well, the possibilities are pretty much endless. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave me a comment below, and of course, click on that subscribe button. And to get regular notifications of our brand new videos right here on Adorama TV, click on the bell icon. I'm Gavin Hoey, thanks for watching.